studying through the book of Job, as you know, and we've come to chapter 34. We'll be looking through 34 through 37 this morning. And if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I handed out a structure of the book of Job, a literary structure, the arrangement of the book of Job. And we're well toward the latter part of the book now. In fact, as I pointed out, there are basically 7 major sections, with the center being the poem about wisdom we read a couple weeks ago. And we're now in the part right after that, the second C section that reflects the first one, the cycle of summation speeches by Job and his friends. In this case, his younger friend, Elihu, whom we heard from last week and whom we're going to hear from again this week. So we'll be basically finishing that section and then getting into the part where God joins us. So right now, as I said, we're going to continue hearing from Elihu, who I'm calling Job's fair weather friend, because it seems that he waited for everybody else to speak and give their opinions and to argue and be insulted and go back and forth. He didn't apparently show up with the other 3 friends early on to just sit with Job for 7 days the way they did, but he apparently came later and did wait because he said he was younger and maybe not as wise. But it just seems to me that he waited for all the controversy to calm down, and then he said, now it's my turn, I'm going to speak. Because after the haze has cleared, when there appears to be clear skies, he shows up. And so I call him Job's fair weather friend. He mentions it later and ends up talking about the weather. So we'll see that. But in chapter 34, Elihu goes on speaking, and Job hasn't answered him in anything he said yet. And he will not either, as we'll find out. He's going to wait for God to do that. But he says, "Hear my words, O ye wise men. Give ear unto me that have knowledge. For the ear tries words as the mouth tastes meat." And I think that's an interesting, picturesque phrase he says there. The ear tries words, even as your mouth tastes meat. You know, when you taste meat, put it in your mouth, you taste it to see what it's like. If your ears listen to something, you'll hear it and judge it to experience what it tastes like. That's what he's saying. He goes on, "Let us choose to us judgment. Let us know among ourselves what is good. For Job hath said, I am righteous, and God has taken away my judgment. Should I lie against my right? My wound is incurable without transgression." So Elihu here sums up basically what he thinks Job has been saying. And then he answers. He says, "What man is like Job, who drinks up scorning like water?" Well, he says basically to the others sitting around, hey, you guys have been scorning him, and the guy is just drinking it up like water. Like he's enjoying the insults and the criticism. You know anybody like that who seems to enjoy being criticized and scorned? I don't know, but he is saying that's what Job seems to be doing. I'm righteous, I'm afflicted for nothing, he's saying, Job is saying. And Job just drinks up your scorn like water. Who else is like Job? And he continues, saying, "For he hath said, it profits a man nothing that he should delight himself with God." Well, Job didn't really say that. "Therefore, hearken unto me, ye men of understanding. Far be it from God that he should do wickedness, and from the Almighty, that he should commit iniquity. For the work of a man shall he render unto him, and cause every man to find according to his ways. Yes, surely God will not do wickedly, neither will the Almighty pervert judgment. Who hath given him a charge over the earth, or who hath disposed the whole world? If he set his heart upon man, if he gathers unto himself his spirit and his breath, all flesh shall perish together, and man shall turn again unto dust. If thou hast understanding, hear this. Hearken to the voice of my words. Shall even he that hates right govern? And will you condemn him that is most just? Is it fit to say to a king, thou art wicked, and to princes, you are ungodly? How much less to him that accepts not the persons of princes, nor regards the rich more than the poor, for they are all the work of his hands. God has created all men, he's saying. And the Apostle Paul said that too. Who are you, O man, who judges another man's servant? Before his own master he either stands or falls. God is able to make him stand. See, we're not supposed to be guilty of condemning and judging our neighbor. Judge not, lest ye be judged, Jesus said in Matthew 7. In other words, he's actually saying when you judge someone, and Jesus did tell us to judge people in some cases, you had better do so righteously, though, because you will be judged by those same standards. So Elihu is sort of saying the same thing. God has made each and every man. We're all equal. So you'd better remember that if you intend to judge someone else's actions or situations, okay? And he says, in a moment they will die. The people will be troubled at midnight and pass away, and the mighty shall be taken away with a hand. For his eyes are upon the ways of man, he sees his goings. There is no darkness, no shadow of death, where the workers of iniquity may hide themselves. For he will not lay upon man more than right, that he should enter into judgment with God. He will break in pieces mighty men without number, and set others in their stead. Therefore, he knows their works. He overturns them in the night, and they are destroyed. He strikes them as wicked men in the open sight of others, because they turned back from him and would not consider any of his ways, so that they cause the cry of the poor to come up unto him, and he hears the cry of the afflicted. When he gives quietness, who then can make trouble? And when he hides his face, who then can behold him? Whether it be done against a nation or against a single individual, that the hypocrite reign not, lest the people be ensnared. Surely it is necessary to be said unto God, I have borne chastisement, I will not offend any more. That which I see not, teach thou me. If I have done iniquity, I will do it no more. So he's really saying to Job here, now Job, you'd be much better off if you would say to God, if I have borne this chastisement, I won't offend you anymore. And Father, show me what it is. Teach me if I've done iniquity, and I will do it no more. Well, he's actually telling Job to do something that he's already repeatedly done. We've heard Job say almost that very thing a few times. And he continues, should it be according to thy mind, he will recompense it, whether you refuse or whether you choose, and not I. Therefore speak what you know, Let men of understanding tell me, and let wise men hearken unto me. Job has spoken without knowledge, and his words were without wisdom. My desire is that Job may be tried to the end because of his answers for wicked men. For he hath added rebellion unto his sin. He claps his hands among us and multiplies his words against God. So Elihu is really laying it on now here. He's saying, Job, I wish God would do even worse to you, man. I wish he'd take you right out to the very end, because here you are clapping your hands at us and yelling at us, telling us that God is unfair. So he's angry. And Elihu continues to speak into chapter 35 here. He said, do you think this to be right, that you said, my righteousness is more than God's? Now, Job didn't actually say that, but he's taking Job's words and showing that this would be the conclusion of what Job had said. Do you think it is right that you said, my righteousness is more than God's? For you said, and here's what Job had actually said, okay? What advantage will it be unto me, and what profit shall I have if I am cleansed from my sin? I will answer thee, and thy companions with thee. Look to the heavens and see. Behold the clouds, which are higher than you. If you sin, what do you against him? Or if any transgressions be multiplied, what do you do unto him? If thou be righteous, what do you give to him? Or what receiveth he of your hand? Thy wickedness may hurt man as you are, and thy righteousness may profit the sons of men. In other words, Elihu is saying to Job, what can you add to God? Or what can you take away from God? If you live a righteous life, what's that going to do? What does it add to God? If you live a sinful life, what does that take away from God? God is above man, so far above man. What advantage can God have in me living a good life? When we put in on our own thoughts and words, what does it disadvantage God for me to live a wicked life? Really, when you think about it, you see, I can't really touch God. Now, my behavior touches others. If I live a sinful life, others around me may be hurt by it, but they may be disadvantaged by my lying or cheating or stealing other people. Or if I do good, others may be benefited by my good. If I feed the poor or help them out, then they can be benefited. So man can benefit by my righteousness or my sinfulness, but what does it do for God? That's what he's asking and saying. What does it add to God that I live a righteous, holy life? They're interesting questions, at least. What can a man add unto God? And he said, by reason of the multitude of oppressions, they make the oppressed to cry. They cry out by reason of the arm of the mighty. But none says, where is God my Maker, who gives songs in the night, who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth, and makes us wiser than the fowls of the heaven? There they cry, but none gives answer, because of the pride of evil men. Surely God will not hear vanity, neither will the Almighty regard it. Although you say that you shall not see him, yet judgment is before him. Therefore trust thou in him. But now, because it is not so, he hath visited in his anger. Yet he knows it not in great extremity. Therefore doth Job open his mouth in vain. He multiplies words without knowledge, he says to Job. Well, Elihu is being arrogant here, and he's going a bit too far. Again, okay? Job is far older and wiser than he, and yet he's accusing him of speaking words without knowledge. Okay? Now, when God comes down in just a few minutes, he asks Job, whom he knows very well, "Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge?" God asked Job that about this guy, Elihu. So God will turn Elihu's presumptuous words back on himself. We'll see later. Chapter 36, Elihu continued. And he's really laying it on now. He says, "Just allow me a little more, and I'm going to show you what I have to speak on God's behalf. I'm going to fetch my knowledge from far off. I'm going to ascribe righteousness to my Maker. For truly my words shall not be false. He that is perfect in knowledge is with thee." So he's saying, here I am, folks. He that is perfect in knowledge is with thee. That's me. I'm speaking for God. Well, see, this guy's getting carried away. And he says, "Behold, God is mighty and despises not any. He is mighty in strength and wisdom. He preserveth not the life of the wicked, but giveth right to the poor. He withdraws not his eyes from the righteous, but with kings are they on the throne. Yea, he doth establish them forever, and they are exalted. And if they be bound in fetters, and be held in cords of affliction, then he shows them their work and transgressions where they have exceeded. He opens also their ear to discipline, and commands that they return from iniquity. If they obey and serve him, they shall spend their days in prosperity, and their years in pleasure. But if they obey not, they shall perish by the sword, and shall die without knowledge. But the hypocrites in heart heap up wrath. They cry not when he binds them." Talking about Job. So now he's calling Job a hypocrite in his heart, because Job is saying, "I'm innocent. I haven't done anything." He's saying, "You're heaping up God's wrath. You don't cry when God has bound you." He goes on to say, "They die in their youth. Their life is among the unclean. He delivers the poor in his affliction, and opens the ears in oppression. Even so would he have removed thee out of the strait into a broad place, where there is no straightness, and that which should be set on thy table should be full of fatness." If only you'd repented, if only you'd asked for forgiveness, Job, God would have taken you out of these straits, he says. But you have fulfilled the judgment of the wicked. Judgment and justice have taken hold on thee, because there is wrath. Beware lest he take thee away with his stroke, and a great ransom cannot deliver thee. Will he esteem your riches? No, not gold, nor the forces of strength. Desire not the night, when people are cut off in their place. Take heed, regard not iniquity, for this has been chosen rather than affliction. Behold, God exalts by his power. Who teaches like him? Who hath enjoined him his way? Or who can say, Thou hast wrought iniquity? Remember that thou magnify his work, which men behold. Every man may see it. Man may behold it afar off. Behold, God is great, and we know him not. Neither can the number of his years be searched out. For he makes small the drops of water. They pour down rain according to the vapor thereof. Now evidently, as Elihu is talking, a storm is moving in. Which storm? The storm. We'll hear from the storm next week. All right. And so Job's fair weather friend is so busy talking here, he starts using some of the rain that begins falling and he weaves it into his speech. And a few moments later, God is going to speak out of the storm from the whirlwind when it really gets there. But the storm builds with a lightning and thunder, and Elihu just incorporates it into what he's saying here. And he says, "For he makes small the drops of water, they pour down rain according to the vapor thereof, which the clouds do drop, and distill upon man abundantly. Can any understand the spreadings of the clouds, or the noise of the tabernacle," meaning the thunder in his house. "Behold, he spreads his light upon it," the lightning, "and covers the bottom of the sea. For by them judges he the people. He gives meat in abundance. With clouds he covers the light, and commands it not to shine, and by the cloud that cometh between. The noise thereof showeth concerning it, and the cattle also concerning the vapor." And there's another remarkable scientific insight here, really. The drops of water which eventually pour down as rain that he's talking about, they are indeed made small, like he said, when they're evaporated and brought up into vapor into the clouds as molecules in the vapor state, like he said. They condense into tiny liquid water droplets in the clouds. Then they coalesce into large drops big enough to overcome the updrafts in the clouds, and they fall as rain, distilling upon man abundantly, is literally what happens when it rains. And he continues a little more in chapter 37, saying, "At this also my heart trembled, and is moved out of his place. Hear attentively the noise of his voice, and the sound that goeth out of his mouth. He directs it under the whole heaven, and is lightning to the ends of the earth. And after it a voice roars, and he thunders with the voice of his excellency. And he will not stay them when his voice is heard. God thunders marvelously with his voice. Great things doeth he, and out of the south comes the whirlwind." So Elihu keeps bloviating on the weather as the storm is building. And he's not really saying much now, just spewing a lot of hot air. Until he finishes with, "Fair weather comes out of the north. With God is awesome majesty." And it's interesting that the Hebrew word that's translated here as fair weather is zahab. And it's also used to mean gold in many cases, or in most cases. So it could also read, "Gold cometh out of the north," or "golden fair weather comes out of the north," possibly referring to the northern lights, aurora borealis or some such thing, suggesting the awesome majesty of their creator that he mentions. And Elihu, Job's fair weather friend, finishes with this: "Touching the Almighty, we cannot find him out. He is excellent in power and in judgment, and in plenty of justice he will not afflict. Men do therefore fear him," or reverence him, "and he respecteth not any that are wise of heart." And that's the last that we hear from Elihu. Okay? And Job does not and did not respond to Elihu, since he knew his charges were false. Elihu claimed to be speaking for God, so Job would just leave the answer to God, And that is exactly what we'll have the privilege to hear next week when God speaks from the whirlwind. So we look forward to that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.